Okay. Okay. Is my screen visible? Am I clear?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So, good evening, guys. Nice to be kind of doing this. I haven't done book reviews or book insights in a while now. Uh, so let me start off, okay, and let me start off in a slightly different place, which is for those of you who have been fans of Amazon as a company or Jeff Bezos as an entrepreneur. If you really look and have followed Jeff Bezos's career over the years, if you go to YouTube, you will find a video I think which is dated about 1999, where he just started this online book company, and he talks about the customer experience, right? He says that customers want three things. They want stuff at low and relatively cheap prices. Customers want a wide array of choices or selections, and they want it really, really fast. And he had said almost prophetically that any company or any person who's able to do these three things will succeed in the world. And, I think 20, 25 years later, we can all attest to the giant that Amazon has become, right? So his obsession towards the customer experience was something which stood out even when he started. And that's the highlight which has made him and Amazon successful. Now, if we look at some other examples like Starbucks, where Howard Schultz, the chairman, talks about making every customer feel special, or elevating the entire coffee shop experience, or Disney, whose logo is every customer who enters, whether for the first time or the millionth time, we treat them as VIPs. Uh, IKEA, which has now kind of started popping up everywhere in India, where it provides such an immersive experience to anyone wanting to shop furniture or anything related to home, and makes you feel involved as you walk through the different rooms, etc. And the motherlode of all things, all brands, which is Apple, where Steve Jobs talked about starting from customer experience and figuring out the technology. Though they are a technology company, he never said that we need to figure out what products to build. He is like, how do I make a customer feel a certain way? What product answers the question? Therefore, what technology is required? So why I'm saying all of this is the common theme in some of the greatest businesses and businessmen and women has been the realization that you don't have to sell the product, you have to sell the experience. And that is what the Prosperous Coach really talks about, which is coaching, which is a very interpersonal and a very deep experience. How can you really ensure that you sell the experience and not really struggle too much about selling your coaching product or yourself as a product? And what I liked about this, the book, is both Steve Chandler and Rich Litvin are now legendary coaches in the US and the Europe. And they identify the crux of the problem, right? Typically, which happens with coaches, where they say that most people who come into the world of coaching love coaching as a concept, love coaching as something that they want to do. But when it comes to the business of coaching, the sales, the business development, the marketing, they really cringe, and they just hate the box on the right. So what ends up happening is most people end up spending all their time, money, resources on the left box. So they'll get more certifications, they might become MCCs in ICF, then let's say they go and pursue some other coaching certifications, and they try to keep on building the competency box. And what ends up happening is, despite the kind of investment that they do, they don't really see it translated into results. It's because they do everything in their power to make themselves great coaches, but also at the same time fail in the business of coaching. And that's what the crux of the book really is. And what these guys say is, they say that it doesn't have to be two separate boxes. They said that by becoming a better coach, what you bring to the table is a transformative experience for the client, and use the very experience, right? What I talked about, that sell the experience, not the product. So make sure that you sell the experience of for the client of being coached, and that very experience itself will become a selling point. And they talk about a lot of these the noise which gets created, that you have to do your brand building, you have to be active on social media, you have to send emails aggressively, spend a lot of time in marketing. They say a lot of these things kind of happen organically, and you don't really have to do a lot of them. But if you instead focus on ensuring that you're giving the clients coaching experience at the deepest level possible, a lot of the business happens by itself. And they talk about four different uh, dimensions, right? They talk about something called connect, they talk about invite, they talk about creating customers, and they talk about the art of the proposal. And I'll just touch upon all four of this. Uh, so when it comes to connecting with potential clients, the book of course talks about this in various kind of parts, but the important thing is they say ensure that you spend at least 2 hours with any of your potential client. And when you start off trying to connect, they said don't reach out to strangers. All our networks are wide enough, and if we look deep enough, we all are connected with enough people who are already potential clients. And it becomes easy when you talk to someone and you can start with your first circle and then impact them, and they in turn will kind of refer other people to you. There are two advantages to this strategy, right? One is it immediately shifts you from being somebody who's trying to sell a service, and puts you in the place of a subject matter expert who has to offer something of deep value to your customers or to your clients. And so what the authors say is start off by reaching out to your network and start off by having genuine conversations. And if you're able to kind of spend a sufficient or a significant amount of time, where the more intense your power of conversation and the time that you spend, automatically at the end of it, you will see people want to be coached by you. And that very fact of wanting to be coached by you and the kind of insights you're able to help them get becomes your selling point. Uh, so the authors talk about, in the create customers part of it, and they say this is different from, let's say, your traditional way of hunting for customers or attracting customers, etc. They say, how do you create customer is you serve them so powerfully that they never forget that particular conversation for the rest of their life. And it talks about something called fearless coaching at this juncture, which really boils down to stop doubting yourself as a coach, especially if you've invested in your competencies, built yourself as a coach. Stop kind of becoming nervous. And he gives an example of a very, very famous ex-military veteran who is trying to create a product for the top 1% people in the world, whether they are CEOs, whether they are entrepreneurs or Olympic athletes, etc. And he says even for that person, while the person brought 20 years of military real world experience of leading teams, of having transformed himself, he also was kind of nervous when he actually tried to sell his product. And he gets coached by Litvin, and finally Rich convinces him to look at himself as someone who can offer all of these 1% of the people in the world the next level experience, which nobody else can create. And when this military veteran gets into that mindset, he starts creating customers because customers want to come and work with him. And one thing I liked about this book is how candid it is in terms of building your confidence as a coach, where it talks about two barriers, right? Generally, there are two barriers in the world of coaching. One is that it has a very low entry barrier. Anybody and everybody, unfortunately, now calls themselves a coach without having necessarily gone through the rigor. The other part is what makes a difference between coaches who succeed and people who either start doing coaching part-time or who just give up. And that is the kind of time that it takes for someone to build a large enough coaching practice. So here they touch upon the fact that people either don't invest in themselves as a coach, which they say you should absolutely not do. They say go all out. And if you want to be a coach, be serious about it. Get coached from the best of the people in the world, and then become confident. Especially in the propose stage, where they say that coaches, even who are having, who can have powerful conversations, start becoming nervous when at the end of it, the client says, okay, that was a great conversation. And they are so invested in keeping the client happy that they don't, that they forget to kind of pitch themselves confidently. So this, what the author says, your proposal should be an integral part of what you do as a coaching, where it comes very naturally at the end of the conversation, where you say that, hey, this was a great conversation, and I have done this with, so many people and so many clients, and this is what I'm passionate about. So when would you, like to kind of commit to this journey? And, when do we get started? And ensure that at the end of your conversation, you have a commitment from the client, because they also talk about the half-life of enthusiasm, where at the end of the coaching conversation, a client might feel high, but then as you give it time, inevitably something or the other comes up and they start doubting whether I should really invest so much. So they say this is the point of sale, where you ensure commitment from the client at the moment where the magic happens, and kind of help them discover why they need it to transform themselves. And another point I liked about this book is, Rich Litvin goes out of his way to tell a client, right, that you don't need coaching. Nobody needs coaching necessarily. It's not something that everybody has to go through. But if you decide to kind of join me on this journey, I can ensure that you will get to that next level, which you might have never unlocked as a potential had you not experienced coaching. So he starts off with, all I encourage you to do is come and join me to understand and experience what coaching is, and then be the judge of whether you want to do it. And he has that confidence where he says that coaching is such a transformative experience that if done right, if you serve the customer powerfully, the business of coaching takes care of itself. And that's how you become a prosperous coach. A couple of disclaimers I would like to add, which is something which I think, so the Prosperous Coach, especially in the coaching world, is a very, very famous book, right? It's very hyped up. Everyone talks about it. But I actually found the book itself to be poorly written. Again, it's not that the authors are bad. When you look these authors on YouTube and when you see them as coaches, they are pretty powerful coaches. But one is the time at which it was written. They still talk about things like sending a check, sending an email, not being on social media, etc. But if you really looked at how they have built their coaching business, they have also done a lot of these things. So while the core message remains powerful, there is a lot of marketing around it, hype around it in the book itself, where it is repetitive. It is contradictory at times, where you're reading a page and it talks about how you should serve someone, and then immediately in the next page it talks about the selling part of it. So the book definitely could have been written better, and it takes some time to really kind of cut through the noise and get to the core. But I would say it is transformative in the sense of instilling confidence in coaches, communicating to coaches that it's the power of their experience and the conversation which should be a selling point, and having the confidence to market yourself as a coach.